Lesson on context of development. So this is our next lesson after knowing the principles of human development. Now, we will look at the different things that could have influenced our development and the different environments where we are developing. Because these environments will have an effect on us as a person, and also as a member of an environment we also influence the development of other persons. So we are all aware that each of us is unique. Our individual difference have been the study of many developmental psychologists. So we say that no one or no two persons are exactly alike. Characteristics of individual children, such as age, gender, or ethnic background, are obvious differences, but differences in the development, the personalities, perception, and others are not. In both areas, we need to understand the influence of the context where each child grew up. So we are going to look at the different environments where you grew up and how did these environments affect you as a person. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to first enumerate the different contexts of development, and second, discuss how each context influences various aspects of human development. Before we proceed with the lesson, take a look at this picture. What do you see? What can you say about the image? Now, how does poverty affect the development of a child? If galing ka sa hirap, paano yun nakaapekto sa'yo bilang tao? So as you reflect to this kind of image or to this image presented, you also look back at your past and look back at your experiences as a child. Whether you are born with a silver spoon, kung pinanganak kang mayaman, or pinanganak kang mahirap. At tignan mo kung ano yung sitwasyon mo ngayon. Paano ka naapektuhan nung sitwasyon ninyo nung mas bata ka pa. So before we identify the different contexts of development, let us first define what is context. So context means the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. So titignan natin kung ano yung mga pangyayari sa mga environment natin. Okay? So we look at the different circumstances, and at the same time, we will look at the different environments. So where you grew up, where you are developing, kung saan ka man nade-develop, yun ang tinatawag nating context. And we have several contexts of development. In the image, sa picture makikita nyo na there could be 5 contexts of development according to this image. So you have mental and emotional context, the culture, social context, the technological context, and then you have the environment. So according to this image, there are 5 contexts where you are developing. Another definition is that context is a very broad term. So it includes many things because context includes all the settings where development happens. So context ay kung saan nangyayari ang inyong development. Sa picture, you will see that you have the home, the school, out of school, then you have the community, and then you have the social, the political, and economic context. So all these are context of development. So this image is different from the previous image. So children are developed in multiple contexts. So you are being developed in different contexts. Hindi lang iisa kung saan nangyayari ang development ninyo. So let's take a look at what are these contexts of development. So first is the first context of development we have. So as you can see in the picture, ano nga kaya itong context of development to? It's very obvious. Ito ay family. Okay? So families are the primary context for development for most children. Most children. Ibig sabihin, hindi lahat ng mga bata. Dahil may mga bata na hindi lumaki kasama ang kanilang mga sariling pamilya. Mga inabandona, nilagay sa ampunan. Of course, meron pa rin silang pamilya doon, but we are talking here of your family talaga. Yung kasama ang mga magulang or kung may mga kapatid. Okay? So, in our families, dito nag-uumpisa yung tinatawag nating socialization. So socialization is the process of instilling the norms, the values, the attitudes, and beliefs of a culture and its children. So kung ano yung kultura ng pamilya natin, yung mga norms, values, attitudes, at beliefs nung pamilya natin, yun yung unang, okay, nakukuha natin from our families. And we can acquire that or nakukuha natin yun through socialization. Our first socialization is within our families. Another important influence of the family to the children would be the socioeconomic status. So here, you have the combined measure of a family's income and parental education and occupation. So the socioeconomic status of your families will have an influence on your development. Pero, papaano? How? So for example, your family have low socioeconomic status. It means that you may have less access sa magandang healthcare and pwedeng hindi malulusog ang mga bata. Kung ikaw ay galing sa hirap, if you came from poverty, it is more likely that children who spend time living in poverty are found to have lower academic performance than those who do not. Sabi ng mga studies, kung kadalasan daw sa may hirap ay hindi ganon kagalingan sa school. Bakit? Kasi nga kulang sila ng resources. Okay? The parents are not able to provide the learning materials. They are not able to send their children to a better school and other educational experiences. So compared sa mas mayaman, may mga TV, may mga phones, may access sa internet, compared sa mahirap na limited lang yung gadget, may cellphone pero the keypad. So it will affect the development of the children. Okay? So it is very comparable. The development of children from poor families and children from rich families are very comparable. Comparable in the sense that we can clearly identify their differences. So that's the first context of development. So you have families. Okay. What is this next context of development? Okay, so this next context is, you are very familiar with this one. So obviously from the icon, Ito ay school. Okay? So because children and adolescents spend most of their daytime at school. So kapag nandun ka na sa schooling stage, either kindergarten or siguro grade 1, okay, hanggang college, okay, madami sa oras mo ang nai-spend mo sa school, within the school, at school. So, in average, we usually spend 6 to 7 hours in school or for some hanggang 8 hours sa loob ng paaralan. So within this context, we learn academic skills and life skills necessary for higher education and professional work. So what are these academic skills which affect our development? So we have the writing skills, the reading skills, and the arithmetic skills, and other skills. So we have several skills that we can learn from schooling. Now, the school is also a ground for socialization. So we have the canteens, we have our study areas, we have our libraries. So we socialize with other children, and we also learn from other children or adolescents. Our peers, our friends in school also affect our development. Other factors in schools that could affect our development would be the different services and activities that support child and adolescent development. So what are these services and activities? So we can have the provision for nutritional meals. There are schools, the private ones, who provide nutritious meals to the students. And then healthcare services. If the school have good healthcare services, that is also one service from the school. And social services. So the school is very important, my dear students. It's an important developmental context when we are talking about physical, cognitive, and social-emotional development. Sa school, may PE, required kang gumalaw-galaw. Kung sa bahay, required ka bang mag-exercise? O it's based on your choice. But in school, required siya sa physical education subject. So there is a difference between home and school. Diba? So, ganon. So, next tayo. So, what do you think is this next context of development? So, you will see there, mga kapitbahay na bata. So, this is your community. So, community affects the range and quality of support services and out-of-school activities for children. Kung saang community tayo nakatira, okay, that could affect our development. Kung maganda yung komunidad mo or yung community mo, for example, yung community mo ay nasa sentro, okay, nasa sentro siya ng town. Okay? So you will have better access to different services. And if your community ay nasa mga barrios, malayo sa sentro, okay, you have less access to other resources or services. Sa mga nasa city, okay, magaganda ang program sila for the children and for the adolescents kasi meron silang pondo. Pero doon sa mga nakatira sa mga baryo, dahil nga baryo sila, mas maliit ang pondo, mas kakonti yung services na na-provide. So that difference influences the development of children and adolescents in rural areas or urban areas. So these services include educational opportunities, and even services to the families to support their children's development. Another factor in the community that affects our context of development would be the safety and security within a community. Okay? The safety and security would affect the exposure of the students outside their homes. Kung safe, for example, kung safe yung community mo, secured yung mga bata, it means that the children can go out and play. They can go out and socialize. Pero, kapag hindi safe at hindi secured yung community mo, of course, sasabihin ng mga magulang, huwag kayong lalabas. So, malilimit din yung socialization ng mga bata. So, you see the difference that safety and security makes in the development of children. Now, this is the last context of development. So what do you think is this context? So this context is about culture. So culture, the system of behaviors, norms, beliefs, and traditions that form in order to promote the survival of a group that lives in a particular environmental niche, describes similarities within one group of people and differences between groups of people. Obviously, our culture influences our development. Sabi nga natin kanina, we first acquire our understanding of the culture from our families. And then later, mas maiintindihan natin kung ano ang kultura natin habang lumalaki tayo. Because we are more exposed to the different cultural activities. And our culture sets us apart from other cultures. So when we say environmental niche, this is the roles and positions and activities a culture performs within its environment. So each culture has a particular role and position and activity in a particular environment. So a culture could be responsible for farming, a culture could be responsible for fishing, a culture could be responsible for safeguarding. Okay, so whatever is that culture. And to understand a culture other than our own, we must understand its environmental context and its values. So para mas maintindihan natin yung ibang kultura, ang sinasabi dito, let's try to look at kung nasaan sila. Kasi kung anong meron dun sa place nila, that affects their practices, di ba? Or their activities. And also, we also try to understand their values. Of course, each culture has a different set of values. And meron din silang different set of practices. Pwedeng yung practices nila acceptable sa kanila, pwedeng yung practices nila hindi acceptable sa atin. So, it is a case-to-case basis. But we need to be open. We need to open our minds in understanding different cultures. Parang kultura ng school. Yung ibang school, may ibang culture. Okay? We need to understand bakit may iba silang kultura by looking at the values of that school. Of course, ang public school, iba ang kanilang kultura sa private school. That particular culture can affect our development. So if you want to know more about this lesson, so you may look for this reference if this is available in the internet, or you can look for other references about context of development in the internet. And that's the end of our lesson on context of development. Again, we have family, school, community, and culture.